Justice Beat is dedicated to the 1 in 3 Americans touched by incarceration. Justice Beat is where we discuss all things justice.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome back for another installment of the Justice Beat Talk Show. And today we're bringing to you our JustUS Youth Talk Show, in which our guest speaker today is Mr. Joseph Mccray. I am going to turn it over now to our associate producer, Carla McKinney.
Good morning, Facebook family and friends. We're glad to be here again with our topic from Joseph Mccray, who works at Alternatives that's located in Chicago, Illinois. And we're going to be talking about restorative justice practice with respect to our youth. So at this time, we have Daria, our associate producer for the JustUS Youth Show, who will facilitate our talk on this morning. Thank you.
Hello. We're so excited to have you, Mr. Mccray. Joseph currently works at Alternatives as a restorative justice specialist, previously as a peace ambassador, where they teach young people restorative justice practices that include talking circles and peace circles. Currently, he's involved in a JustUS program where they teach young people how to become more restorative through circle practice and community building. We're so happy and excited to have you here. How are you doing this morning?
I'm happy to be here. I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. So can you give us an overview of the mission of Alternatives?
So the mission of Alternatives is to have youth create a just future through restorative justice practices and behavioral health services. I am on the restorative justice team. I've been with Alternatives for about 4 years, 3 years as a peace ambassador, 3.5 years as a peace ambassador. And now I'm currently a restorative justice specialist.
Can you talk a little bit about those different roles and what each of those roles do?
Okay. So I'm a peace ambassador. The Peace Ambassador program is a paid apprenticeship program. It's for young people that have faced housing insecurity or have had a run-in with the judicial system. It's for young people at the ages of 17 and 24. I started the program it's called RJ Institute. It was kind of like a summer job-based program through ones from Chicago. And at the time, I was in college, but I was also facing homelessness. I was in a youth shelter at that time. And at the start of the program, I wasn't really comfortable telling the staff like what I was actually going through. I kept it to myself for a while. And then I told them like what was actually happening. So I was out to show up to the program like very early, like 7. And that was because of my living at the time. And I told them what was going on. They told me about, do you want to do circles as a part-time job? And at the time, I was like, oh, I get paid to do circles. And I ended up, doing the program. And it just elevated from there. Now, a restorative justice specialist, the difference between a peace ambassador and a restorative justice specialist is, so the Peace Ambassador program, with it being an apprenticeship program, it's only 17 and 24. And Peace Ambassadors mostly do like talking circles, circles, and more like community-based work. They help like the full-time staff like facilitate things, and they also do community-based projects. One of the projects that I did as a peace ambassador called the PART Project, which we showed to the Chicago Coalition of the Homeless. We showed them a presentation of like what young people face like housing insecurity. As a restorative justice specialist, it's kind of the same thing, but it's a little different. I still do peace circles. I still do talking circles, but I do it with advisors. I teach the advisors within CPS on how to implement restorative justice practices, and then teach it to their students to make their school culture a more restorative climate.
Wow, that's incredible. You've done so much wonderful work. I saw on alternatives that y'all do like school-based restorative justice and community-based restorative justice. Can you spend a little bit of time like talking about the differences and what that looks like?
Yeah. So, school-based, when it comes to school-based restorative justice, we usually go in schools. We have like assigned classes, grade levels. Currently, right now, I work program. I've been doing it for a while. It's called the JustUS program, where we work with young men, sixth grade through eighth, and we teach them restorative practices. For example, we do a lot of talking circles with them, and community building games. Because most of them, they know each other, but they don't know each other in like a deeper level. What we talked about like last week was just what is something that you're proud of and that you wish to accomplish in the future. We kind of had a conversation around that, and that was good. Kind of like the school-based aspect of it. Community-based racial justice. We work with an organization, a partner organization called Nehemiah Trinity Rise. And what we ended up doing with them, that's a church-based kind of restorative justice nonprofit. And what we ended up doing with them was we did a community cleanup and also like a community-based like circle with people from the community to just talk about issues that were going on within the community and what could be a possible solution to those issues.
Wow. I wanted to know, can you describe restorative justice philosophy in your own words and what that means to you?
Sure. So the way I would describe restorative justice practices in my own words is to right a wrong that has been done to you through getting to the root cause and working your best to repair the harm and prevent it from happening again. That's what I was trying to answer, but yeah.
Mhm. So who are your participants mainly, and how do you find your participants?
So within the school system is more so the school contacts us and they cuss with a need. I say like, okay, these students, we want to implement restorative justice practices in the school because the school climate right now is very punitive. Like for instance, I work in a school called Revis, and the school culture, the school climate is very punitive. The students, they get yelled at a lot. And when we come into the schools to do our classes, which is like 1 hour with the 6th through 8th graders, they're all on different days. We try not to. We don't come into the school space to be punitive. We try to show them a different alternative to punishment and to like when it comes to doing harm to others or even to the staff, we try to address it in a more restorative way. First of all, you need to have accountability when it comes to racial justice. You got to be accountable to the harm that you may have caused or the part that you play in a harm occurrence. Try to just have a conversation with them instead of yell at them and make them feel bad because they made a mistake or they did some type of harm.
Expanding further, can you talk more about what the content of these classes look like, particularly peace circles?
Okay, so in a peace circle, it's very different talking circle in the sense of it still has the same guidelines. Like every talking circle, every piece has the same guidelines, which are honor the talking piece. That means whoever has the talking piece, that's the only person that's speaking. Speak and listen from the heart. That basically just means being authentic to yourself, and speaking from your own perspective. Confidentiality, what's said in circle stays in circle. What's learned in circle can leave circle. And then sharing is voluntary. Like we make sure we say those guidelines when we start circles, because we're not forcing anybody to share that is not comfortable. But peace circles are it's usually requested from the school if a harm has been caused. Let's say 2 kids fight and 1 kid got their nose busted. I know that's an outrageous example, but I'm just giving an example. Let's say a kid got their nose busted, right? They would contact us and ask us, can a harm be caused? We would like to hold a peace circle. Can you all facilitate? I've been in a peace circle recently. It's very different than a talking circle, just because it's more so have to get to what was the conflict, what led up to it, and what was the cause of the conflict. So we had a situation recently where it was a high school and an 8th grader. The high schooler fought an 8th grader, and they him and his friends jumped on this 8th grader. And during the peace circle process, we had to ask, the kid. I don't like saying kid, but we had to ask the youth, like, what happened, what led up to it, and what part did you play in this conflict? Because it all stemmed from social media, so we had to keep on asking them questions in terms of getting like the full story. And the interesting thing about peace circles is that if 2 parties, they get into a scuffle or a conflict, both parties do not have to be present for the process to be. If one party says like, okay, I don't want to do a peace circle, then that's totally fine. We respect that. And the other person says, I do want to kind of resolve this. I want to get out what I need to get out. We will still have the process. And then at the end of a peace circle, we would have them come up with agreements in terms of what are they going to do moving forward with this person that they may see daily basis, and how they can hold themselves accountable for their actions or how they interact with this person. So it's basically agreements that they come up with. We write them down, and then we kind of out, and we have them sign it. So it's basically like, okay, you made this agreement, you made this contract to say you're gonna do this when it comes to this person. You gotta hold yourself accountable to it. I gotta get them to have an accountability partner that can't hold them accountable to what they agreed upon. Long answer, but
No, I'm so curious about the process. Excuse me. So, considering the fact that, both parties don't necessarily have to be present to do a peace circle, how do you navigate kind of the resistance maybe about participating, especially when restorative justice involves taking accountability?
So for me, the big thing about restorative justice, and when it comes to peace circles, we make sure that we have a phone call or we talk to the parties involved before the process begins, because we want to let them know like what this process will actually entail, because most people don't know exactly what a peace circle is. So we try to make sure that we people a heads up, like, okay, this is what the peace circle process is going to look like. This person will be a part of the circle. And the reason we tell them that is because we don't want to have them caught off guard. If like that they had an issue with or a conflict with, and then they come into the peace circle and they like, oh, I didn't know this person was going to be here. And then it causes another issue. So we just want to make sure that we ask them like, okay, are you okay with this person being in a circle? And this is what the peace circle process will look like. And we also ask them their needs, like what is something that you need in order to participate in this process or feel comfortable in this process. Sometimes, students say, oh, I'm gonna need snacks, or I want to go to a room that got couches. I feel good if I'm in that type of space. Oh, can music? It's a lot of different things that we try to ask them to make sure that we meet their needs as much as in terms of their process.
That's amazing that you guys are so accommodating in, creating a safe space for them. Can you talk a little bit about other challenges that you experience when facilitating restorative justice practices?
I would say the biggest challenge is resistance. I think that when it comes to a philosophy or a practice that is different, that is not the norm, then I think a lot of people are very resistant. In my time at alternatives, I've done trainings with people who were very resistant. They was like, "This is not going to work." One teacher in particular, as I was training with some of my coworkers, he bursted out and he was like, "I don't like restorative justice practices. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. It doesn't work. These kids need punishment." And we pushed back on that because it was like, okay, let's say you do punish them, right? They come back to your class, they still the same way. We got to get to the root cause of that issue. It's not just as simple as, okay, this kid is misbehaving in my class, I'm going to kick that kid out, and now the misbehavior is going to stop. That's not true. I think you have to get to why is this kid misbehaving? Why is this kid acting out in your class? And most of the time, when you really get a chance to talk to the young person, you're able to get things that they wouldn't have gave to the teacher because of the teacher's attitude and the way they go about things. Because most of the time, like, kids could be going through housing insecurity, food instability, bullying, anxiety. A lot of different things can play a factor in why a kid is misbehaving in class. I think when you're punishing somebody and you're saying, okay, I'm going to kick you out of class, or I'm going to suspend you because you don't know how to behave, I think you're putting a Band-Aid on an open wound, and it does more harm than it does.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's so many layers to why kids act the way that they do, and why they maybe asking for help, right? In your experience, what are some other reasons or maybe themes that you've noticed as to why kids may be acting out in class, and how do you educate administrators or teachers?
So another thing that I find in terms of young acting out and why they may be misbehaving in class is because the content's boring to it. It's no relatability. Secondly, it could be that it's a lot going on in their personal life, like gang activity, family member passing away, parents that are, neglectful. It could be a lot of different things. Because when you get a chance to talk to the person that is acting out, you hear a lot of things when you're able to listen to understand versus listening to mind. I think a lot of teachers, when it comes to young people, they listen to respond versus listening to understand. And I think that as as educators, as teachers, as parents, as whatever you may be, I think it's imperative for people to listen to understand versus listening to respond, because you get a better response when you do it that way. And that's what I've experienced, like when it comes to, and that's what I try to give to administrators, teachers, and advisors. That's what I try to tell them, because a lot of older teachers, they have old school mindsets, and I do try to, like, you got to be open to change. You got to be open to different ideas, because obviously your idea or the way you want to do things isn't working because the kid is not receiving it. So yeah, that's what I.
No, I love that. That's so important. And I'm so grateful that you like take the time to work with, the teachers and administrators so they can kind of continue these practices. Can you talk about your own training process and like leadership development? What was that like for you?
Sure. So for me, when I first started restorative justice, I was a little opposed to it at first. I didn't know what it was. I was a little nervous. My first goal was actually I was in, I believe it was 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. I was young. That was my first circle I ever experienced. Um, and it was a lot of people. It was like 10 of us, including me. And we were all strangers. We never met each other. And this was at Alternatives. This was at the original location that was. We have a South Side building now. We used to have 2 buildings, but we sold the North Side building. Anyway, so this was the North Side building. I did a circle for the first time, and we were talking. We were vulnerable. Like, we talked about things we never told anybody. I shared things in front of strangers that I never told anybody. And the space just felt safe. I cried, and I'm not going to lie. When I first did the circle, I'm like, oh, I see everybody next to me crying. I'm like, oh, I'm not crying. I don't know what's going on, but I ain't about to cry. And I cried because it was so many things that people said that resonated with me. And it was one thing in particular, this young lady said that was sitting next to me, and I related to it so much. And it made me emotional, but it felt good though. It felt good to let out my emotions in a space where I wasn't going to be judged for it. Because you can't find a lot of spaces like that in Chicago. If you cry, the first thing you do when people are around, they may make fun of you. So Alternatives was that space where I was like, okay, cool. And I signed up for the RJ Institute program, and then I fell in love with the practice. I wanted more, and it just kept going from there. And I got hired on as a peace ambassador. Did that for 2.5 years. Eventually, applied to be full-time at Alternatives as an RJ specialist because I really got the work. I care about people, and I care about the students. I want the world to change. I think we can't get anywhere if the world stays the same the way it is. With punishment being the only solution to difficult people that may be deemed as difficult people, or people that has behavioral issues. You have to do something that's actually going to work, that's actually going to be fruitful. And I honestly think punishment is not that. So yeah, that's what I'll say. I know there was a long answer.
No, I love it. What a therapeutic and transformative experience that you had. With all this work that you're doing, your own personal work, as well as helping others navigate this healing process, how do you move through and take care of yourself? Doing that emotional work, right? It can be really draining.
I'm gonna be honest. The way I get through it, the way I take care of myself is through prayer, being leaning on the God, just really getting to know other people. Community building is really important, and that's something I strive to do. Also, in my personal life right now, currently, I am going to implement a restorative justice program within my church. And the reason I wanted to do that is because of the work that I've been doing for the last 5 years. Because I think not just the school systems, but I think every system to get restored. everybody should learn how to implement restorative justice practices just in their professional lives, but also in their personal lives, because I think that we get to a point where we can do that, relationships will be restored that people never thought could be restored. And it's all about a person being willing to, implement that. So, there was a long answer too. I say long answers.
No, please don't apologize. Love hearing about your experience and your view around all this. It's incredible. We are just about to take a quick commercial break. I would love to follow up more with your experiences with the church and how you are going to implement that
Okay.
after the break.
For sure.
Producing Next Generation Media Internship Program, designed for undergraduates, postgraduates, unemployed, dislocated workers, and WIOA participants. Our program offers remote virtual work experiences, qualifying as approved individualized career services. Learn while leading at your own pace, with part-time or full-time hours per week. Benefit from weekly debriefings and group supervision, along with our 15-minute masterclasses. Our projects include the JustUS Beat Talk Show and the JustUS Youth Talk Show. Discover your gateway to success today.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
So I'm so curious. That's amazing that you're going to implement it with your church. What do you hope that looks like?
So for me, I hope that us being more united, not as a church, but us getting to know other people within the community and bringing them on to restorative justice practices. Because in my experience, when people ask what I do for my job, I say, oh yeah, I do restorative justice work. And most of the time they like, what is that? So I wanted, and the reason I wanted to implement this in my church, the reason I need for it, is because a lot of us, that, the people that go to my church, I'm close to some people, but I'm not close to everybody. And I also noticed that with other people that are my friends, people that I'm close, we're not close as we could be. And I talked to my pastor a couple ago, and I told him, like, okay, I want to implement talking circles within the church. And I told him what my word was, and he was down for it. He wasn't opposed to it. He just said, like, kind of a presentation, like what you wanna do with it. And he asked me, like, why, like, what made you like want to do this? I said, because it was something on my heart to do. Some I've never really seen in that type of space. Because circles can help anybody, especially the church. It'll give us where we're able to have conversations. We're able to connect to each other deeply and organically, and it's not sugar coated. People are not going to be afraid to, be themselves, talk about things that are on their mind, that are on their heart. So yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. I want to kind of do it once a month, and if everything goes well, twice a month, and then open it up to the community, the city of Chicago, so we can, tackle some issues, talk about some things that people don't really talk about, or they keep to themselves, which I don't think is healthy. I think us as human beings, we need to let out things that are bothering us. We need to let out things that we're happy about. It's not healthy to keep everything in. And that's something I've learned over, the last 5 years. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
I love it. Big dreams. I can't wait to see it.
For sure. Yeah, I may make a nonprofit out of it. Who knows?
Oh, we'd love to hear about it. So considering that you are, going to implement it, in your own community, as well as, working with youth, what do you think are the main or major misconceptions that people have around restorative justice, and how do you challenge them?
I would say the main misconceptions that people have around restorative justice is that it's it's kind of like a get out of the free card. I've heard that a lot. That restorative justice is not going to work. Well, I don't like it because you're basically making it seem like the young people, they're just getting away. They're going to be getting away with everything. If restorative justice gets implemented in the judicial system, people are not going to be held accountable for crimes. There's a lot of different things that I hear. And the way I challenge them is I tell them that's not y'all. Like when you look at restorative justice, when you really take a deep dive and you research about what restorative justice actually is, it's not free of consequences. That's not what it is. It's, first of all, when it comes to restorative justice, you have to be accountable. If you caused harm to someone, you have to be accountable for your act. You got to hold yourself accountable. Secondly, the thing about restorative justice is that you have to make sure that we address the harm that was caused. Whatever harm may have been caused from whichever party, we have to make sure that we address the harm so we can prevent the harm from happening again. And when I kind of explain it to them that way, it kind of gets through to them. And sometimes I give analogies. Like I say, like, okay, let's say, because I was speaking to an older lady, older teacher, and I was talking to her, and I said, okay, let's hypothetically speak right now. Let's say that you left out of school and your car window was busted, right? And you saw the kid that did it. You knew who busted out your windows. And you went up to the kid, and the kid was like, oh yeah, I just wanted to bust out your windows because I felt like it. That's not get into the root cause of why it happened. Like, why did you decide to bust out windows? We need to have a conversation because I want to know, like, why you busted out my windows. And when I give them that analogy, they kind of understand what the practice is actually trying to do. So it's all about really just breaking things down and, trying to use analogies where it through to some people that are more on the tough side.
Absolutely. I'm curious about, with that example, because I was hoping that you would maybe walk us through, like, start to finish, like what, a restorative justice peace circle talk looks like. But we could, like, going off of that example, what does the, like, aftermath look like? What does resolution specifically look like with those kids and youth, and how does that play out afterwards?
I love that. I love that question. So if usually if a youth did something the way I just described, usually a peace circle would be held, and we would try to get to, like, what was the root cause, like, why did you bust out the window, what led up to that. Oh well, this teacher was making fun of me, or this teacher wasn't listening to what I had to say. Then you gather that information, right? And at the end of the circle process, what it would look like would be them getting both parties get some type of closure, and agreements would be made by both the person harmed and the person that caused harm. Because that's a big thing in restorative justice, is that we don't just look at the person that caused the harm, we also look at the person that was harmed, because we want to make sure that both parties get what they need. Because, like the saying goes, hurt people hurt people. Even if you're a person that was harmed, I'm pretty sure that a person that was harmed has harmed someone else. So it's just a never-ending cycle. So that's what I say.
Mhm. No, absolutely. I'm curious as to what it looks like if the party that was harmed uh, does not want to forgive or does not want to move forward. Of course, that is their right.
Yeah.
How to navigate that.
So when a person that was harmed says like, okay, I don't want nothing to do with this practice, I don't want to forgive a person, the biggest thing that we do, we try to follow up with them, try to get, not to, we don't want to forgive, we just try to get like different pieces. um we request it and deny it, and we move forward. Now, if the person that caused the harm does want and does want to kind of continue the process, then we would have a restorative conversation with that person, and have that person come up with agreements on what they are willing to hold themselves accountable to. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm curious as to, can you give some examples about what common agreements look like for both parties that
Yeah,
you've noticed, major themes?
yeah. So we usually call it smart agreements. So for example, with the piece that I recently participated in, the young person, what we came up with is we asked them, do you agree if you see this person that you fought, I will not, you know, so basically what the agreement was for him was, I will not engage in trying to fight this person. I will apologize to this. I will apologize to this person's parents. And this was stuff that he came up with, that he, as he was in the peace circle process, he felt like, okay, I need to do this. It was not something we asked him to write. It was something that he kind of came up with. Um, and there was a couple more agreements. And we printed it out and we had him sign it. So it's basically like, okay, you have these people here that is in your life. He was a boxer, so we had like his trainer that was there. And it was like, okay, you're agreeing, you're writing it and you're signing this. So if you don't uphold this, then we're gonna come back to this conversation and ask you like, okay, why wasn't this upheld? Why wasn't this upheld? Because usually always in a peace circle process, we have a follow up. We always follow up with the parties to see how they're doing after the process. Even the person that declined to forgive the person or have the talk peace circle process, we still follow up with them to see how they're doing. In fact, so yeah, that's what I would say.
How long do you wait to follow up with them?
So let's say a peace circle happened Wednesday, right? We would try to get in contact with both parties. We would kind of like wait, like I would say no later than like Wednesday of that next week to kind of follow, see how they're doing, how they're processing things, and then if any else is needed from us, we would contact the organization that requests the peace circle.
Got it. Okay, that's wonderful. What do you think? Is there any story or peace circle that really stood out to you that you're like allowed to talk about?
Um, yeah. I would say the one I was, yeah, I just was talking about. Um, his name was Amir. The young person's Amir. Amir he's a boxer. At this organization called the Block. And he was a boxer. He was in school. Pretty good. Pretty good kid. Yeah, good grade, stuff like that. but it was his friends. The friends he was around, they were in some other activity, and by them being his friends and by him being friends with them, he, he just didn't want to. Um, he wanted to help them because it was some beef that got started on social media. He went up to the head of school. He swung on an eighth grader, um, but then he missed, and then some of the eighth graders' friends jumped in, and the eighth grader ended up getting jumped on. And what ended up happening was he got his championship belt taken away from him. And we kind of had that restorative conversation with him in that peace circle, really get to like why it happened. And ultimately, he told us it happened because he just wanted to defend his friend. But what ended up happening because of him swinging on the eighth grader, he got some threats that was sent to him, and it was a lot. And we came up with agreements. When we came up with agreements, he said, "I want to apologize to." I forgot the other guy's name, but he said he wanted to apologize to the person that he swung, which was really moving to me because most of the time when it comes to fights or people get into it with somebody that's full, they don't usually want to apologize. You get what I'm saying? It's not really a common. So yeah, that's what I say. And yeah. And the reason that story stood out to me is because I think it's really powerful when someone that caused harm is then remorseful and forgiving. I think it's very powerful, and I think that is like the root to restorative justice and also like being accountable. So yeah, that's what I would say.
That's beautiful. I love that. So, what would you say are the most rewarding aspects of your role?
I would say the most rewarding aspect is to really help my community be better than we ever could be. I mean, when I say community, I'm talking about the people. I live in South Shore. It's a neighborhood like East Side. So I would say not just the South Shore community, but the whole community as a whole. I want them to be the best people that they can be. Secondly, I love being able to serve young people and teach them the other ways to deal with conflict other than being using your fist or being violent. It's other peaceful ways to get your point across than doing it the punitive way. And then lastly, I would say just being able to have peace within myself as I go through this practice. So yeah, that's what I would say for myself. I can't hear.
Sorry about that. Didn't have my mic unmuted. But good afternoon again, everyone. Daria, was anything else that you wanted to share before I jump in with some questions?
Oh, please.
All right. Well, good. Well, Mr. Joe, we have a few questions from our team and also from the audience. One of the questions was, I want to pull this back up quickly. How do you see the future of restorative justice evolving within the Chicago and beyond?
So for me, the way I see the future of restorative justice, I see it as everybody, learning about justice and learning about restorative justice. And I think that's by participating in more circles, and then with the restorative justice community as a whole. Because my goal and my future aspects is I want the whole Chicago area to know what restorative justice is. And by me implementing it in my church, I want to kind of move it forward to not just the church, but all systems and corporations, so they can learn how to deal with conflict more effectively as well.
And as you mentioned the church, we would probably, for those of us who are involved in the church, and I don't want to take it in that direction, but you would believe or have some thought that the church already understood that. But we're also finding that within our churches that we have to bring about this ideal of restorative justice. Has it been well received in your particular church?
Yes.
Okay.
I implemented. I told my pastor what I wanted to do. He was on board. He wasn't opposed to it. He told me to send him a presentation of what I actually want to do, and he was on board for it. And yeah, I know that a lot of churches may be opposed to it just because it's something that's very new. And I think a lot of times, like when you're implementing something new, it can be a lot of fear attached with the nuances and new things being implemented. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
All right. Okay, so what would be some of the strategies that you would implement to encourage resistant youth who do not want to engage in the peace circle process to engage?
So for me, I have dealt with a lot of young people that when it comes to peace circles where they were very resistant. And the biggest thing I told them, I'm not going to force you to share, but it would be highly encouraged for you to share because I want to get to know you as a person. I want to know your side of the story so we can get the full picture. And I want you to be able to heal from this experience, heal from the anger that you may be feeling in this moment, and even the irritation. And I kind of related to them because a lot of the young people, they listen to music. So I try to relate to them in that way, and that kind of roots to them. So yeah, that's what I say.
Okay. And on that note, for those maybe that you were able to reach who initially were resistant, was there anything that you were able to pinpoint was the reason why they would rather hold on to the harm that was caused them or the harm that rather than sit through the process? Was there anything that you can say, okay, this is what this really was?
I would say, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be completely honest. Biggest thing that I saw was, especially from the young men, is ego. It's ego, not feeling or seeming like they're weak or they're punk because they're being vulnerable. Because a lot of times, and this is even in my own life, and I had to do a lot of healing, but parents, they kind of tell you like, okay, you're a man, you're not supposed to cry, you're not supposed to express your feelings, vulnerable state. And what I've come to realize and notice with the young people that I've worked with in the peace circle process, that was the biggest thing.
Okay, their ego. All right. Now, on the other side, as we're talking about young people, I always like to look at the adults that are engaging our young people, having taught in an alternative school. And while many of the teachers were great at disseminating their content, what I saw was sometimes a lack of understanding of the young people that they were teaching. So for an adult coming into this space wanting to teach young people who have a plethora of traumas that they've experienced, what are some attributes of an adult who wants to be in this space for young people that would be beneficial to them as the teacher, but towards the young person as well? What should an adult be ready for or possess coming in?
I would say you got the adult should be able to harness their peace, harness their patience, because this process is not always easy. It's always going to be sunshines and rainbows when it comes to young people, and when it comes to conflict and sitting in the peace circle process, because most young people they don't even know what it is. They've never been in a situation before. The way that a lot of young people are taught, and the way I was taught when I was younger is, hey, somebody do something to you, you do the same thing back. So being introduced to this new method of dealing with conflict and dealing with your anger and dealing with your feelings, it could be scary for the young person. And I would just preference any adult when it comes to dealing with a young person that may be very agitated or annoyed. You want to be patient. You want to be peaceful. You want to ask, like, what are your needs? Like, what do you need right now? What do you need in this moment? And that's something that I try to make sure that I ask when it comes to students, but the young people that I have worked with in peace circles. So yeah, that's what I say.
Right, because we had a question here that, and you kind of already spoken to it. They said, initially, if you want to build trust and positive relationships with the young people, how might that happen? So I've heard peace, I've heard patience, and you also said finding out what the young person need. Is there anything else that you may want to add to that? Or do you think that kind of sums it up?
The other thing I would add to that is love. I think you want to show love to that young person, and that could look a lot of different ways. Like, okay, do you hungry? Do you want a snack? Can I get you a bottle of water? Something like that. Like, really trying to see like what could make them the most comfortable in this space. Because the young people that I've worked with, they always say, "Oh yeah, can we go to the room with the couches?" Or I would like snacks. So just try to make sure that you're trying to accommodate their need. And yeah, that's what I say. Love, pace, and yeah, that's what I say for sure.
Okay, well, good. And those are very basic. And we will find if we walked in those a lot more often, we would get a better response out of our youth. I found working in that space and my background being very different from the young people I was trying to teach. And I had a student say to me, "Miss McKinney, you didn't raise these kids. They're not yours. They don't have the training that yours is." So, and she was helping me to back up, and I had to reset myself. Just because these young people look like me didn't mean our background was the same. And I learned a lot by listening to her and other students who were like her. They saw I cared, but I didn't know how to care that was best for the kids that were in my classroom. So that was a great learning experience for me. We have about 4 minutes left, and I want to give you an opportunity to share with us any last parting words, anything that you have going on in the work, anything you need us to know. This is your space to take care of that.
Okay, great. I just want to say, first and foremost, I want to thank you all for allowing me this opportunity to speak about my work and the work that I do. You all have been a pleasure. You all have really wonderful spirits, and I love that. My last parting words would be harness your patience and your love and your resilience in everything that you do. The reason I say that is because it's going to take you a long way. No matter if you're teaching students, no matter if you're a fighter, no matter what you do in life, that's going to take you a long way. And I think, like, when you're working with youth, or when you're dealing with youth, or even if you have any kids at the moment, just remember those things: patience, patience, love, kindness, and resilience. Being able to, and also being adaptable. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
Right. And I think that is probably at the top is being adaptable, because we come in here with these hard, fast and rules on how we're going to be. And then we get into a space where we've got to be adaptable and flexible for the move of the day. So once again, Mr. Joseph Mccray, did you have something to say before I close this out? Go right ahead.
I was just gonna say one more thing. You all have a beautiful, blessed, and extraordinary day. Enjoy the sunlight.
All right, all right. Well, Facebook family and friends, we thank you again for being with us here this morning with our guest speaker, Mr. Joseph Mccray, who talked about restorative justice practice. We are glad that you were here, and please stay tuned and watch our credits. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Justice Beat. If you like what you heard and found the information useful, then support the Justice Beat radio show by spreading the word and telling a friend.